Good evening, classmates, or good morning, or good afternoon, whenever you see this video. We were talking about tracking and ability grouping, and I went mostly off of my personal experience with tracking or thoughts or discussions I've had with other teachers in my building. Um, but after reading some of the debate through the readings we had, and then using my own opinion or experience, I find that tracking or ability grouping needs to be done properly or needs to be utilized properly for it to actually be useful and not just a controversial topic. Um, Tracking or ability grouping or putting kids together based on ability, I see this as a special education teacher because of inclusion, trying to make sure that we are servicing, or not servicing, but the services are given to our students. Um, and so when there's multiple sections of classes and only so many periods of the day that I can enter the classroom in a co-teaching situation or can be there as a resource support in the class, I have to adjust student schedules to make sure that they're in the same section so that they are being seen by me, and at least in the language arts or math classes. Um, like it mentioned in our readings, they talked about science and social studies as classes that are not necessarily ones that are ability grouped or tracked. So, uh, but in those English and math classes, I tend to try to get in to see the kids or give them aid, since not all students' math or reading abilities are up to par with their classmates. Um, at the same time, these students are not in a necessarily PUD uh, math or reading course. They're actually in the classes that they're required or other students are required to take. So that's why it's necessary for me to be there to provide any support that I can. And so that's why I feel like tracking or ability grouping is necessary in inclusion type situations with students with special needs. The other area that I was looking at, we were talking about vocational paths versus college prep, um, and I'm thinking back to the unit where we talked about looking at career academies and career pathways, and I feel like this would be a good opportunity to have those tracks, those paths for all students, because right now we either have you have the college prep or you have graduation, and there's the voc classes, but they take that to meet graduation requirements. So I feel like if we could have set those pathways up where whatever courses they need for a certain job or field of study or whatever, if we set those up, those are there for those students. But the thing is, we still got to let them have their interests have to come into play. We're not just going to force them down that track. We need to make sure that we are allowing them to make choice. It's supposed to be, school's supposed to be the home for democracy. It gives them a chance. We're not just going to shove all our students down the path to some menial job that does not require a lot of them. We still need to probably challenge them, so that's why we're going to make sure that the coursework still is challenging, not the diploma mill and get them through. But I feel like if schools work together, we can set up these career academies, kind of like majors in college where they need to have so many courses to graduate and requirements. I feel like we need to do the same thing so that they can go down the certain paths or tracks. And plus, it may not require those students to take the higher level classes as well. Those at the lower ability, maybe they don't need Algebra 2 or Trig, or maybe they don't need to read the English literature class that we sometimes require our kids in our school to take so that they meet English credit. So that's why I feel like tracks or paths through career academies would be necessary in terms of an ability instruction or of a tracking of a sort. Um, I do agree, and I mentioned this already with subjects, I do agree that in some classes, yes, tracking or ability grouping is necessary. Um, Math, we see that in our school. We have students that don't necessarily work at the same level as the rest of their classmates, so we offer different ways of getting around that math uh, subject, whether it's a lower level math class while they're in middle school and they work on that through, and then in the high school they take algebra over a 2-year period because the normal algebra class moves at a higher speed, quicker pace, so that they are not able to grasp and actually apply those concepts. So we kind of spread it out over time, but they still will meet the 3 years of math that they need to graduate. Um, then in reading, we maybe need to put those kids that are not at the same level together, so we're not having such a wide disparity between students. And that's kind of what I agree. In elementary, it's probably best that there should be those groupings based on ability. If there is a concern about the parent, maybe there's nothing wrong with pairing them up with someone at a higher ability. But I mean, those were places where I agreed with what we saw in the reading. I understand some parents might not agree and think that their student should be at a higher level, but if you pair them with these higher ability kids, then maybe that concern doesn't show up, and then they're all working together. So that's my take on tracking and ability grouping. It's got to be done properly. It just can't be done to force kids down certain paths, but we got to make sure it's being used, especially with special ed kids. If you're in a small school like I am in, and need to make sure that you're there to serve them. And I also think if this a career academy thing starts taking off, that we start seeing more pathways to different jobs and what classes they may need to do that. So please feel free to comment below and in our message board, and I look forward to hearing from you. Thanks.